anybody has any recommendations for like plant walks or speaking events, do they know someone that wants to do a presentation, or do they want to do it themselves, or do they want to do a plant walk to schedule for next year? Hopefully start getting that schedule set up pretty soon. So keep that on the radar and email me. So if you send an email to the ONPS, is it activities at ONPS activities or my email address, you'll find me.
Yeah, if it goes, if you just use the one on the webpage, it
Okay.
goes to Sandy and
Okay,
she'll send
yeah.
it to whoever
Yeah.
she thinks needs.
Okay. Yeah. So the webpage, the email on the webpage is great. Yeah, and this is Dr. Priscilla Crawford. Thank you for coming out tonight. Oh, well, I'm still going.
He hasn't yielded yet.
Yeah. Yeah. She's gonna talk to us about conservation and biodiversity. Thank you for coming out. We can wait until whenever you want to start. We could do a free Q&A.
But I'll be happy to start. I'll give myself a long.
Yeah.
Talk about
Hey, the president.
Retired president.
Wait.
Well,
Yeah.
before we get started, I can give you an
Shalani
update
is
from the
president.
annual meeting.
Oh,
That would be great. If you got it, yeah, report on.
Yeah,
the
I didn't.
annual
Yeah, he's the new
meeting.
president.
So we have an annual meeting.
The vice
We
president.
did have an annual meeting. And several people in this room were there. I see some familiar faces. It was a joint meeting, as before with the Oklahoma Academy of Science. And had a good turnout. We had more than last year. Good.
State Park.
Yep. That was the first week in October. It was cooler during the day than it was last time. It was really warm last year, but it was much cooler in the evening too. So it's a little bit nippy. Smokers even in the camp and in tents, but that was mainly students. They can bear. But we had around 100 people. We made a little money off this one. Both organizations did this year. Last year we lost money because we didn't have as many as we thought. And the campsite cost as much. But this year it was better. And so both organizations ended up making money there. Good. Next year we're looking at western part of the state. Possibly landowners. That'd be that book.
Be September or October, month calendars are always fun. Lots of plant walk, lots of botany, but there's a whole lot of science nerds because of this thing, and it's just mammals, birds, reptiles, like ichthyologists.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of camaraderie. You make new friends, or reacquaint with old ones. Fun.
Motion to have a pro-meeting, joint meeting with OER. Yeah.
Yeah. I think until both members start to get up to a point where we can't do it together, then we'll continue to. But really doing it together, it really helps create a critical mass. We couldn't paint on it.
And then we did actually have the annual meeting, like there is the election of the new officer.
Yeah.
Who is the new president?
Celine,
Okay.
so our vice president is now the president.
Okay.
The previous president is now no longer anywhere around to be found. Juliet is now our vice president. We have a couple of new board members. And so the organization is big, getting bigger, it's robust. There's a lot of stuff going on. I encourage you all to read your Gaillardia as it comes in. If you're not members, sign up, jump online to the website, and you can read previous Gaillardias and just kind of get a pulse of what's happening.
They are eventually online, but if you're a member, something like this comes in the mail and it's got pictures and articles. And I just happen to be downsizing, so all my old newsletters are free for the taking.
All right. Dr. Crawford.
Thanks, Micah, for inviting me to come speak at the Native Plant Society. I've been bumping around Oklahoma for a while now, so this is maybe the third or fourth time I've gotten to speak to the Native Plant Society, and I'm always excited to come talk to a bunch of people who like plants. We're few and far between in the state, and then even within biologists, they all want to talk about, you know, those fuzzy, cute and fuzzy mammals or those interesting birds. So talking to people who are excited about plants is always good. I'm going to focus my talk today on the Oklahoma Natural Areas Registry, which is a program that I've been running for, I think, the last 18 years. Oh, I'm not that old. But I was talking to Adam Ryber, and I went to graduate school together, which was just a few years back.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm going to talk about this program. It's a voluntary land conservation program in the state that we run at the Oklahoma Biological Survey. I'm going to talk just a quick thing about me. Like I said, I've been working in the state. I've been here for 25 years. I started as a graduate student working on ecology, and I've been in the state doing this job as my career for about the past 18 years. And so over the last 18 years, I've done a wide variety of things. I've always been in this program running the Natural Areas Registry, but a lot of you know me through BioBlitz. I did BioBlitz for 15 years, and I've done a lot of outreach. And so I've kind of developed this career mission where I'm trying to educate Oklahomans about the vast diversity that we have in the state. A lot of people don't realize how diverse, even the people who live right here have no idea how diverse it is. Before I came to Oklahoma, I knew there was grasslands. That's why I came here. I wanted to study grasslands. And, but I didn't realize the wide diversity from alligators in the swamps down in McCurtain County all the way to pronghorn and ponderosa pine in the canyon. So introducing people to that diversity is a big part of my mission. And I've done a lot of things, like I mentioned, BioBlitz. I'm also been responsible for the biodiversity poster series that we do. I have a lot of swag here that I hope to give out. So I brought one of our posters, which is the grassland breeding birds, and then our newest poster, which is thistles and thistle lookalikes, both bad and good ones. We're also going to have an invasive plant council meeting on December 1st. Everybody's welcome to attend, and we're going to be giving out a little magnet based on the poster. So if you want to get a cool magnet, come to our invasive plant council meeting. So, like I said, I've been working at the Biological Survey. I actually worked there as a graduate student before I came on full time. What is the Biological Survey? Some of you may have a vague notion. We're a state agency that's embedded at the university system. We are also a research unit. So we have faculty in our department that teach graduate and undergraduate students. We interact with them in the classroom, but then we also interact with them with research projects. So we provide that kind of hands-on experience that students might not get in a classroom. We also are responsible for maintaining the spatial databases of rare species in the state. So things that are federally endangered, but things that we also consider state rare, that don't quite make it to the federal level. And then within the Biological Survey, we have 3 programs. The Beverarium, which is plant folks most of you are probably familiar with. That's on the campus of the main campus of OU. The Natural Heritage Inventory, which is responsible for the rare species databases, and then the Oklahoma Natural Areas Registry, which I'm going to talk to you about. So it's a citizen-based conservation program. It's all voluntary. People who own property and that have rare things on their property can become members of it. It is completely voluntary. It is it doesn't have a financial or a tax incentive for people, but it is a way to encourage private land conservation in the state. How does a property become a registered state natural area? Well, it has to have certain elements. It has to be habitat for state rare species. It has to have, or it has a known location for a state rare species. So if something has good habitat for an animal, but you don't necessarily find it, but the habitat is really good for that rare animal, so the habitat can qualify it as well as like known population. An excellent example of natural habitat. So maybe you don't find something rare, but somebody has a beautiful troggrass prairie that's diverse and looks really nice. That can qualify it, or it can have a unique geologic feature. And I'm going to go through some of these things. So rare species populations. I worked for about 10 years on an imperial tern here in Oklahoma and central Oklahoma along the Canadian River. It has been delisted, so it is no longer on the endangered species list. It has recovered its numbers along the Mississippi River to, I don't know, 1,000-fold what it had been when it was listed, and now the interior least tern is now delisted. In here in Oklahoma, the population hasn't recovered as well, but we're kind of a fringe of the population, so they were more focused on the bigger population. But we still have terns in the state. Some of the other things, different salamanders. We have several rare salamanders in the eastern part of the state. This is the western slimy salamander and a little cave in Delaware County. And then the seaside alder. I've tried to put all of the scientific names for everybody, for those of you guys super enthusiastic. And I added some more plants to this presentation because I'm talking to a plant-loving crowd. So the seaside alder, it is a disjunct plant. How many of you have heard the seaside alder story? Oh, some of you don't know. So the seaside alder is this funny little shrub that only in Oklahoma only grows along Pennington Creek and the Blue River in the Johnston County area. So down here, Tishomingo, Connerville, south of Ada. I throw around a lot of geographic terms because my degree is for biodiversity. So I should have like a separate presentation up here that's just the map so I can point to all the places next time. But it grows in those locations in south central Oklahoma. But you notice that the name is seaside. You're like, why is something in Oklahoma called seaside? Because the first populations that they found are all along the Delaware, Virginia, Maryland coast. So it's along the coast, it's in Oklahoma, and then it was found a couple decades ago now in some swamps in Georgia. So it's got Oklahoma, Georgia, the coast. And so it's a really disjunct, it's rare in the state. It's not particularly rare on the coast, but they think it's a remnant of when it was a lot more widespread, and then as climate change with the retreat of the glaciers, it has been restricted. So now it grows along just those few tributaries of the Blue River and Pennington Creek. So another plant that is registered or properties are registered for this plant is the dwarf pipewort. It is dwarf. It is about this tall. The dwarf pipewort only occurs in acid hillside seeps. These little white bombles that you see on the screen, that's the flower. Or actually, that's the inflorescence, that's multiple flowers there. Again, this tall is very hard to find when you're tromping around in mid-June in Atoka County, down your antlers in a seep with like waders on. I didn't enjoy this field work. Other people did, these are in acid hillside seeps, so this is a type of special wetland that we have in that part of the state. So it's sandy soils that, as the water flows through, creates a slightly acidic water. These tiny little plants actually like disturbance, so we're finding them showing up in like marshes like this that are being grazed. So if you're only this big and you're in a place where all the plants grow really high, having some grazing occur so that you can reach the sunlight is actually a good thing. So the dwarf pipewort is one of the plants that we are working with landowners to protect. Another plant in the Ozarks is the Roa ketchfly, Silene regia. It's this particular plant is in Cherokee County. This plant is beautiful. It blooms in the middle of the summer, bright red. It can be about this tall. You can see in this picture that it is being jailed in these cages. The landowner is protecting it from deer browsing. So he and his wife have gone out, and they're retirees. So they go out and cage these plants so that the deer can't browse them. As soon as those flowers pop out the side, they get munched off. It's not a particularly rare plant in the rest of its range. We are on the very edge of the range. That's a real typical story in Oklahoma. We're on the edge of the range of so many things because we're on the edge of all the ecosystems, the eastern deciduous forest, the western grasslands. And so we're on the edge of the range of so many species that they're rare in our state, but they're not so rare in other states. So it's a lot more common in Missouri. Here you can see it's kind of in like a little dappled edge of a forest in the Ozarks. In Missouri, it's out in the tall grass prairie. It's out in the open. You can buy seeds for this, like at Prairie Moon or wherever. It's relatively easy to grow. We've grown some, and we've given them to the landowner, and we've given them to some other landowners in Cherokee County, and we've had success with them doing well. But we are able to germinate them and grow them in the greenhouse. Another plant is the long-haired phlox. Right now, I think this is the accepted name, Phlox pilosa, longipilosa. There's some debate, is it subspecies, is it its own thing? But it's the long-haired phlox. It grows down in southwestern Oklahoma. You probably recognize these rock outcroppings. This is Quartz Mountain State Park. If you've ever hiked along, there's a loop that goes around the Baldy climbing area. I think this was April, and they were just all over the place. So it wasn't particularly rare at Quartz Mountain, but Quartz Mountain is one of the few places that it grows in the state. We've been trying to figure out, well, I need to approach some people about collecting seeds so that we can potentially grow them out. They probably are not going to be very difficult to grow in cultivation. But the long-haired phlox is one of the plants. Quartz Mountain is an interesting story. So Quartz Mountain is now a state park again. It had been a state park. I think it was one of our original 7 state parks. And then it got transferred for some reason to the state regions of Oklahoma. I don't know why, I don't understand what the politics was. But since it was in the state region under their jurisdiction, that's when we registered it as a natural area. In general, we don't register the state parks because they're already protected. But we thought we wanted to educate the state educators, state regions, about the rare things they have on their site. So that's why Quartz Mountain is a natural area, but none of the other state parks are. Another plant at Quartz Mountain is the Texas live oak. Again, another plant that is not so rare in other places, but one of the few places that you can find it in the state naturally is at Quartz Mountain. So unique geologic features. Caves and springs are really common things that we will register properties for. We have gypsum caves, we have limestone caves in the program. We have a lot of spring properties and seep properties, because wetlands in our arid environment are all important features to protect. Oh, I already told the Quartz Mountain story. And then Ozark streams. So this is a spring in the Ozarks. So we have the Ozark forest, but then also a spring habitat there. thought I had more examples of geologic features, but I have more examples in a minute. So excellent examples of natural habitat. This is a picture of Salt Creek Canyon. This is registered natural area. We have several landowners are represented in this natural area. And this is north of Romano State Park, where you might have your next annual meeting. And it is all private property, and it is along Salt Creek. The reason why it's salty, you might look at this picture, and if you didn't know the situation, it might be like, oh no, it was all dumped by some terrible mining accident or something. But no, this is the natural formation. These are all salt flats along this creek. And these are salt deposits from way back when, in ancient times, when there was a sea over Oklahoma, and the salt was deposited in various layers up and down for millions of years, like 300 million years ago. And so this salt is coming out of the rocks and through the groundwater. And that creates some interesting habitat along the edge. And then the canyons themselves are important for the black-capped vireo. I was gonna say black-eyed, and then I was gonna say chickadee, but the black-capped vireo, they nest on these canyon sides. They like the shrubbiness, but not too shrubby, and they like the steep sides, and they will nest in these habitats, as well as the Wichita Mountains, Fort Sill. And I think people have been looking at the Quartz Mountain area too. But the black-capped vireo, again, another animal that's been downlisted, but they are still trying to figure out the recovery in some parts of the country. Another good example of habitat, this is a wetland along the Blue River in Johnston County. So wetlands are almost always considered as qualifying for the registry. Good examples of cross timbers and mixed grass prairie. So this is a property in Garvin County, down south of Lindsay. And it is an example of a place that is a working ranch, but that can still qualify for the natural area program. So having grazing or using the property for your income doesn't exclude a property from becoming part of the program. In fact, I haven't done the quantification, but I would say probably half of the properties are being used for farming or grazing. We have 102 registered natural areas. And again, they can protect everything from bald eagle nests to prairie dog towns, rare plant populations, endangered fish, all sorts of things. We have 133 landowners. Like I mentioned, you can have more than one landowner or landowner family for one natural area, like that Salt Creek Canyon. I think there's 4 or 5 landowners that encompass that area. This is John Bruno. Some of you may know who he is. He was really important in the work that was done at the Arbuckle aquifer and getting it protected. This is Larry Andrews. Those of you who have attended some of the field days that we offer, Larry Andrews is the annual participant in the field days. He and his daughter Jamie led us onto the property, gave us a tour of their site, and we get to look at their really good examples of cross timbers and tallgrass prairie habitat. Larry is a retired firefighter, and he loves a good prescribed burn. So he's very good at making sure his land gets burned regularly, and so his habitats are look beautiful with respect to the diversity related to the burning. So what is benefit to the landowner. Like I mentioned, there's no financial incentive, no tax break. It's not like putting a conservation easement on your property. But we do help people that come to us and like, we want permanent protection. So we can talk to them and point them to some of those land conservancy groups. And we can also help people that are trying to look for money that they want to do some habitat improvements. So we try to act as a middle person to point people to programs like EQIP and GRIP and WHIP. I think the P all stands for protection and preservation in this. But these are like farm bill programs and then programs with the Fish and Wildlife Service where they will do matching funds for habitat restoration projects. So we recognize the landowner, they get a plaque, they have an agreement, and it's kind of a nice little pat on the back. We also give some advice and guidance on habitat management, but of course, I'm the program. And I rely on advice from people in my departments, and then people that I've met across the state who do lots of habitat management. But I don't know everything, so I try to make connections between the people I know and what kind of advice they're looking for. We also do some surveys on people's property, depending on who has expertise in my department that wants to do them. We do plant surveys and bird surveys. And then we help these people, educate them on how to protect these species on their property. Landowners can be really involved, like Larry, providing a field day every year, or they can be totally hands off. In fact, I have somebody in my database who's like, do not even send me an email. I won't send you an email. But people are in between. Landowners can offer field days. They can attend workshops that we've done. We've done some seed collecting workshops. We can do biological surveys on the properties I mentioned. We've also helped people establish some research projects on people's properties and helped with some restoration projects. And I'll go into a little bit more detail. But just to reiterate, like landowner information is confidential. I don't give out landowner information unless I've been explicitly given permission to do that. Most of these areas are on private property, and even Larry's property, you're not allowed to go back onto that property like as a park later. So you know about the area, but it's his private property. You wouldn't just go back. So but there are some that are public. The Keystone Ancient Forest is a public registered natural area. Like I mentioned, Quartz Mountain. There are a few other places that I'm blanking on off the top of my head. But here's a field day. This was just a month ago. Maybe no, it's a little over a month ago. You can see we're all sweaty. This was at Larry's property taking a tour. We were resting in the shade. I think we were hoping for a cooler day. I think it got to 95. We had postponed because the week before the heat index was 105. So, like I mentioned, we do plant surveys for people if they're interested in learning about their plants, or if it's an area that is of particular botanical interest to botanists in our department, or someplace that we haven't explored much in the past, some location. I've also done some work with landowners who have cross timbers on their property. So we have aged some of the trees on people's properties throughout the cross timbers region. And this is Elise, one of the students that worked with me several years ago, and she's coring a tree. So we take out a core and then we can count the tree rings on that core and come up with an age for the tree. One of the properties we cored trees, and there are trees that were over 300 years old, which is pretty significant for Oklahoma. We've also been helping a property owner down near Ardenwood to do a grassland restoration project. It's a family foundation that had a little extra money to give us to pay us to travel down there regularly over the course of not this summer, but the summer before, and to do some data collection and then give advice about grassland restoration. And they're now working on getting rid of some of these super invasive species that they have in this pasture. This property used to be a property that was a horse rescue farm, so way overgrazed because they had way more horses than they wanted to have. People, did you realize that people would dump horses at these places? They would just like somebody would dump a dog out in the county road. Somebody would dump a horse at this place. And so they accumulated horses like crazy and way overgrazed, and they want to improve the habitat. So we've been working with this landowner to do that. We've done some bald eagle nest surveys in the past for properties. This is one just south of Norman that we monitored for several years in a row. This tree broke several years ago, and I think the nest has moved on. The bald eagles, again, another species that is recovered in the state. I don't know if you've known the story about bald eagle recovery in Oklahoma. The number that when they were put on the endangered species list that they said we needed to have in the state to be considered recovered were 9 nesting pairs.
Oh,
We have like 300 nesting pairs now in the state, so well met the recovery goal. And every year we're finding new nests. So the program to monitor nests is now on a citizen science kind of voluntary basis. It used to be that Sutton Center had people that were paid to monitor each nest, but now that there's so many, they can't do that, and they're relying on volunteers to keep track of certain nests. Another bird that we've done surveys for and did a little work on is the Bell's vireo. It's considered a state species of conservation concern by the Wildlife Department. It's a tiny little bird. It's super cute. It's hard to spot, but you can hear it sing all day long. It's why I'm not usually a birder, so I choose the birds that you can watch when you don't have to get up at dawn. So like these terns, they're out all day. Bald eagles, they're sitting out in the middle, and then Bell's vireo sing all day. You don't have to get out there at dawn. So, but that's one of the problems with Bell's vireo is that they sing all day and they sing very close to the nest. And so one of the reasons why they're in decline, the speculation is that they're in decline because their nests get parasitized by brown-headed cowbirds. So the brown-headed cowbird hears and sees the little bird singing away and sees the nest and will lay their eggs in it. And then the poor little Bell's vireos, teeny weeny the cowbirds, will raise the young. And they like edge habitat, and so does the brown-headed cowbird. The least terns, which I mentioned, we worked with a lot of landowners for several years, getting grants from the Fish and Wildlife Service to protect least tern colonies on the Canadian River. So these were areas kind of like Westmore, South Oklahoma City, and then in the Norman area. Very few least terns are nesting in these areas now because we haven't had a scouring flood for about almost 20 years. So in 2007, we had tremendous flooding that scoured off all the vegetation. And that's what the least terns like. They want bare sand. They don't like this, the stuff we're standing in, they don't like. We are looking out over a big open area. The least terns want a big open area so they can see those coyotes coming and those raccoons coming. And we are losing that habitat because there hasn't been a scouring flood, so the vegetation has grown up and all those big open areas are mostly closed. One of the research projects that we helped facilitate was this program, and I was trying to remember what's the school in Canyon, Texas? Texas Tech at Canyon, Texas A&M Canyon. I can't remember. Nobody knows. Anyway, this young man who was a graduate student at the time went to school there, and he was interested in looking at populations of the Mexican free-tailed bat. This is a gypsum cave in southwestern Oklahoma. And it is the largest maternity colony in Oklahoma for the Mexican free-tailed bat. And this student was testing out some different techniques on how to count bats. So have anybody been to the Salmonback Cave viewing, and it's just like there's thousands of bats come out and for like 20 minutes, like constantly, and they swirl around, and some go back in and some come out. And so they're just like, how do you count all of those? And so this student was looking at how to use some technology that actually does missile tracking to see if you could use that to count bats. And I think they were comparing some different techniques, but we worked with the landowner to get permission for these researchers to get on the property. And this landowner was curmudgeon. He did not want us on the property. Like, I drove down there with Bill Kerr. Some of you probably know Bill Kerr, the mammologist from UCO, the other confusing school, UCO, and he and I drove down. We sat in this guy's kitchen for like half an hour. This is like a 4-hour drive. We spent all day driving, sitting in the kitchen to convince this guy to let us on this property. And we get down there finally. We're hauling the equipment, and the guy was like, I don't know if we should do this. I'm really regretting that I'm letting you guys off this property. But then he found out that these people were from the same school he graduated from. And so before he left for the night, because he dropped us off because we had to hang out here really late. Before he dropped us off, he had given the key to the gate to the guys. And then I think he said, the mascot is Bucks, and so he was like, "Go Bucks!" as he drove away. So I have some good stories about landowners, but most of them are very excited to have rare things on their property. Even this curmudgeon guy, he was worried about liability. There's this like myth about we're going to trip and sue him if we broke our leg on his property. So he was worried about that, but almost everybody I deal with is very excited to have these species on their property. They're very proud of it. It's usually been in their family for a long time, or they purchased it because it's an interesting natural area. So the conventional wisdom of like, get the government off my property is not necessarily what I experience in the state. Another project that we're hoping to start in the future is bee surveys on people's property. We have a new bee biologist in our department, Dr. James Hung, and he is a bee expert. And so he's been doing bee surveys across the state, kind of get a handle, and he's found all sorts of cool things because nobody's done specifically bee work across the whole state. And so we're hoping that he'll get on some of these properties because everybody loves the bees. And so they're like, yes, please come and tell me all about the bees on my property. And the project that I've been working on over the past few years, and it got kind of derailed during COVID, COVID derailed everything. And we lost steam on a lot of projects. But this is something that we're picking back up, is our seeds. Seeds are a really important resource that we need to work on getting established in the state. Right now, there's, as far as I know, there's only a couple seed repositories in the state, and they're both associated with tribes and are specifically for tribal members and tribal use. But it's a resource that we need if we're going to do any serious restoration in the state. So some of you may know, like in other states, California, Colorado, those progressive states, when a road gets fixed or a pipeline goes in, if you scrape all that vegetation off, a lot of times those people that come back in have to reseed it with native species that from plants that were from that area. So, or that region, there are seed regions. Of course, the government's developed all of them. There's seed regions that the federal government's established, but here, what do we do? What do we do in Oklahoma so we can scrape clean along the highway? They went on that stupid Bermuda song. I hate Bermuda. So, but in other states, they don't do that. They have to do native seed plantings. Someday we'll get there. My hope is that someday we'll get there. And I'm thinking of that future where someday they'll need seeds. Because one of the problems that these states, when they first implemented this, the problems that they were coming up with was that there wasn't seed resources in the state to provide native plants for plantings like this. So thinking ahead, hoping that it's going to be the case, is that we're going to start acquiring seeds around the state to represent the genetic diversity that we have in the ecoregions of a lot of the common plants. We will collect seeds of rare things, but most of it, we want to collect the common things that would need to be used in these kind of very basic restoration projects. So we've had, before COVID, we had seed collection field days, and we've been able to provide some seeds for home landscaping and kind of small scale projects. We've been growing out some seeds for some habitat improvement projects down at the biological survey. Some of you may, if anybody went to my Audubon talk, Sierra Club talk, you heard me talk about the biological station restoration projects that we're doing, and then a few park projects that we've given some milkweed plants to. We want to maintain a repository and a database of the seeds. We hope that these will be used eventually for bigger restoration projects. We've been working with the tribal lands for pollinators. I've learned so much from them. They've been a valuable resource because they have the biggest seed library in the state. But theirs is specifically for tribes and tribal members and tribal land. But I've learned a lot from them, how to store things, how to clean things, how to grow out things. And they've been a really valuable resource. So if you are a tribal member or you're associated with the tribe, they're a great resource if you're doing any sort of native plant restoration. It doesn't necessarily have to be pollinator related. But you can contribute too. So if you have seeds in your back 40, or if you have seeds in a natural area that you frequent, you can contribute these seeds too. I have seed collection kits. So it has all of the information on how to do it, and envelopes and little data sheets. So if you're interested, you can take a packet and submit your seeds when you want. I'll leave these up this. So you can collect these seeds for us and submit them, and then you'll be in our special seed library. So like I mentioned, my career mission has been to educate Oklahomans about the cool diversity we have in the state. Some of you may have seen my eco-region webinar, super popular. It's got the most views on our YouTube channel.
How do we find it?
We have a YouTube channel. Our website is ou.edu/biosurvey. And somewhere on there, there'll be a link to our YouTube channel. So that eco-region seminar, when everybody was super keen on doing webinars because we couldn't get in person, or if we did get in person, we all have to have a So I did an eco-region webinar. So I'm trying to get the word out about how cool Oklahoma is. I mentioned we have the posters up here up front. Please take as many as you want. We have a lot of posters because we haven't been doing very many outreach activities in the last few years. One, COVID, and two, I was mostly the outreach person for our department, but it's not really my job description. I was getting a little burnt out about outreach, and so I've been stepping back and doing some more research projects. So we have a lot of posters. So if you have like groups that you would like to take a handful to, please take them. But I have been getting like wind under my sails again, so to speak, with returning back to COVID. Did anybody else have like 3-year lull there. I think I'm just now emerging out of it. So I've started my next big project, and you are the first like public group I'm telling you about this project. I've talked to a few of my colleagues and a few people in my department know. But I'm writing a book, and the book is going to be, this is the working title, The Naturalist Guide to Oklahoma. It's going to be a book that you would find on the shelf of your state park nature center. This is the book I wanted to have when I first moved here 25 years ago. You know, it's going to be based on ecoregion. It's going to tell you, like, why is this ecoregion even here? What makes it interesting? What plants and animals are in there? Why is it so wet here? Why is it so dry here? Why is it so windy? What does the wind do to create these habitats? So each chapter will be a region, an ecoregion-ish. And when I started talking about, oh yeah, it's going to be, every chapter is going to be ecoregion, somebody was like, well, which system of ecoregions are you going to do? I was just like, oh God, I don't know. So it's going to be regions of Oklahoma. I've already written my first 2 chapters, and will draft my first 2 chapters. But I've been here for 25 years, and I've been working in the state like professionally for 18, and I've been all around. I've been to every county, I've been to every habitat, been to every state park, lots of wildlife management areas, most of the refuges, and but I don't know everything. You can't know everything about all the cool stuff in Oklahoma. And the person that I thought should be writing this book, he was like, absolutely not. I'm never writing this book. There's no way I'm gonna write this book. Anybody?
Who is that?
Does anybody want to guess who I am? No, it wasn't Bruce. No, it's Mark Howard. I was like, I was thinking blessing before I took it on. Like, you're not gonna write this, are you? He's like, no. So I got Mark Howard's blessing to work on this project. But I'm looking for people to give me input. I'm asking experts that like Mark Howard. I'm assembling kind of an expert group to talk to, but I'm also seeking input from my audience, people who are going to be buying this book. So I'm looking for suggestions and like things you think are important for like species to cover, species you think are overlooked. You know, I'm not going to write about the scissor-tail flycatcher. Right? Everybody knows what this is. Oh, well, it'll probably get mentioned. Oh, it's our state bird. But there are so many other cool birds out there that people don't know about. So things that have interesting natural history stories, public places that people can see cool things. I mean, we all know about the state parks, but like which WMA has like really nice habitat? I haven't been to them all. Maybe you've been to one and you're like, this one's fantastic. And then I will be looking for some donated photos. I got the plants covered. I'm pretty sure the plants are good, but I'm not a bird photographer. So I'll be looking for some donated photos. This QR code takes you to a little survey where you can fill it out to say, yes, I'd love for you to email me once a month with a short survey of questions, because I'm hoping to write a chapter a month for the next year. Sounds daunting, but if you're interested in contributing and probably being acknowledged in the book as a helper, you can scan this QR code and it'll take you to a survey to put in your name, email, and say, yes, I'll be happy to help, and I'm good at plants and birds and fungus. Sheila better fill it out. You don't have to. I'm sorry, I didn't. I know some people are like, oh, please keep me out of it. But that's the end. Thank you all for listening. My contact information here is up here. This is also our website. If anybody has any questions, I should have told you to interrupt me in your contact.
Yes. One question that comes to my mind is, okay, those seed kits, is there any kind of guidance on what seeds you prefer, or do we just pull
I
Yeah.
prefer ones that you can identify before you give them to me. And ones that you know are not planted. So we don't want anything that's been planted. So we're looking for seeds that are out in the wild that are not part of somebody's garden. And the kind of the guidelines are in the kit instructions.
Oh, okay, okay.
Do you have any seminars coming up about seed collecting?
We're hoping to do a field day at the grassland restoration site down near Ardmore on December 9th, I think is currently scheduled. One of the problems with why I'm kind of hesitant about that one right now is he was supposed to have done a burn so that the area is clean, and we were going to collect seeds and seed in some of the burned areas. But Murray County was under a burn ban for a really long time. It's now been lifted, but I'm not sure if he's been able to do his burn or if we'll have the field day. But we hope to have some more seed collection days. Oh, that was something I didn't do. I can, if somebody has a sheet of notebook paper, if you want to write down email addresses, I can add you to our mailing list where we announce those events.
Want me to send one around?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so put your email address on there if you want to be added to the email, like biosurvey e-newsletter, which is separate from the book. Yeah, I can.
So I'm interested about the registered natural areas, and I should know this, but are there any registered natural areas now that are based on an endangered or rare insect? Or is there hope that maybe we'll be doing that with the James Hunt bee surveys?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, and I'm sorry that I didn't include it in the presentation, but we do have some sites that are registered for the American berry beetle, which I did not include. I should have when I was double checking this. Yeah, so the American berry beetle, it is a giant carrion eating beetle that buries its prey or prey. Carrion, what do you, that's the term.
Carrion.
It buries a pretty substantial animal and lays its eggs on it, and the larvae will consume it. And the adults are take care of that whole system while the larvae are. It's a super cool system. One of the things about the American berry beetle, though, is that it is a generalist for the eastern part of the state. So if you found American berry beetle on a property, it's not necessarily a special property. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, but it is a generalist species. So it's like protecting a place because it has deer on it.
There are a few areas in the state of Oklahoma that have good viable populations of those. And Camp Gruber is one of them, up by Fort Smith, another.
Yeah.
But there aren't many areas in the state where you can put out food and you almost never find it in the state. But I was also thinking about in the northwest perimeter, there are all these tiger beetles that are very rare and very specialized around particular salt lakes. And that'd be cool if somebody was willing to work with you to form a natural area based on tiger beetle populations that were rare.
Yeah, no, that's very good. And of course, invertebrates are always neglected. And especially in the conservation world, when the registry was being set up kind of in the 80s, the emphasis was protecting super big things that were becoming endangered, put on the endangered species. And those were, bats that inhabited the Ozark caves, the interior least tern, bald eagles, the big flashy. So Ken makes a great point that we should start thinking about some of those invertebrate populations. And I think James Hung, our bee biologist, is looking at some of the bees that nest in sandy areas as one of his areas of expertise. And the state is covered in a lot of sand. You don't necessarily realize, but there's today, but the statistics I read was like 15% of the state is like sand dunes or stabilized sand dunes. So there's a lot of standing habitat out there for some of these rare sand nesting bees.
Yeah, I'm curious about something. I realize that a lot of the landowners you find just happen to have like owned land for generations and et cetera. Are there any resources for someone who wants to buy land that would be friendly to restoring or helping species? What if you want to buy a couple of acres somewhere that would be, is there any way you could do that?
If there's not like a system like that, that would be a nice system. I do know that some of the organizations that do conservation easements, like set up conservation easements. So like in the Tulsa area, there's one called Land Legacy. And I know that they have been kind of like a matchmaker for like that.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
But I don't know how often that happens. But like, so for example, the property that had 300-year-old trees, 300+-year-old trees, in, I don't know, it was near the Keystone Nature Forest near Sand Spring. That property was owned by a family, and there were like 5 siblings, and nobody wanted to live on the property. I think only one sibling was left living in the state, and they wanted it protected, but nobody really wanted to own it anymore. And so they had the Land Legacy put a really strict conservation easement on it. And I might have the details wrong. I think they sold it to the Land Legacy, and the Land Legacy sold it to somebody else who was interested in owning a property like that.
So if you really want to do that, you might just contact Land Legacy.
Yeah.
Direct me in there.
Yes. So I might contact, one of those organizations that do those conservation easements. I know in the Norman area, we have the Norman Area Land Conservancy, I think that's what it's called. And there might be a couple others. And then there are some that are specific for agriculture too. So not necessarily like pristine natural habitat, but to maintain open agriculture so it doesn't become a neighborhood. Yes. Yes, they were some kind of oak. The 300-year-old ones, I think they were blackjack. Some of the old ones on Larry Andrews' property were actually chicken finches. I think that was the oldest ones on his property. I remember that. And then some of the old ones on another property were post oaks. But I think the ones on the near Sand Springs was blackjack.
Is purple milkweed in, is it on the, no, purple milkweed, I don't know the Latin names.
Is it one that you see growing naturally like in your area?
No, I have some, but it was planted.
Well, there are a
But I
couple
had read somewhere that it was getting in there.
as far as I know, none of the species in the central United States, none of those milkweeds are considered endangered. Some may be less common than others. So in Oklahoma, our most common milkweed is the green milkweed, green antler. Yeah,
Yeah.
So the squeaky spirit is the most common, but then we also have some of the purplish ones, like top milkweed and showy milkweed. The showy one's kind of like this. But those are less common, but I don't think anybody is worried about their population. And if somebody knows more, I don't know everything. Even though I am doing a research project on milkweed.
Oh, you are? Oh, really?
Yeah. And
Do
then
you want milkweed seeds part of your? Thing?
yeah, milkweed seeds would be great.
Before long, we can just say, ask Priscilla, he wrote the book.
Yeah.
With everybody's help.
Do you have an idea when you'll be done?
So I told the editor that I would have a full manuscript, actually negotiated that I would have a full manuscript done in a year. And publishing, who knows? So expect a book in 2.5.
Thank you, Priscilla.
You're welcome.